to another beautiful day in the crypto landscape. Our bags are still there, folks. We did not go to zero. The S&P trying to make a bounce right now. Bitcoin tried its hand above 80K, got rejected. You know what didn't get rejected? My wonderful friend, my past colleague, joining me on the show. What is up, my man?
My guy, what's up? How are you, man? Hey, good to see you.
Yeah, dude. I mean, it's awesome to have you back on the show. I mean, actually, last time I saw you, I wasn't even doing a show.
Mhm.
You know, I was just deep in the trenches of research,
Right.
writing.
Setting up the mornings.
That is exactly where I started. Now we have a show. Welcome everyone, J Chains, to the channel. We also have a great old school guest that gives us the best Bitcoin TA I think I've ever seen, and also the most calming delivery of it. So I'm excited for that. Isaac,
sir,
fixed the car.
Yes, it was just an electrical issue. My
So you
transmission
did
did
not
not
blow
blow up. I did not blow a tranny. No, I did
Good.
not blow a tranny.
I'm really glad.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. And me and Isaac had a talk this morning about the difference of looking cool and being cool.
Mhm.
The conversation of the next car he's expecting to buy,
Mhm.
just to make sure you got more money in your pocket.
Yeah.
Just trying to keep it reasonable here, but we got a great show, tons of information laid out for you today. We're going to be diving into the RWA sector and some of the sneakier altcoins that I think have more long-term utility, have more just general adoption and upside, and kind of get J Chain's thoughts. I know you went to the kind of Ondo summit.
Yep.
And you had some interesting things you were saying about your experience there, which I found pretty interesting. So we're definitely going to dive into that.
Cool.
But also, I want to get Piano Matty B up on the stage because Bitcoin pulling back currently. Where are we at right now?
A great question.
You are banned.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's what happens when Mr. Mark keeps talking.
Okay.
That's also.
My God. All right. Let's bring Piano Matty B up on stage. Let's get this legend up here. Piano Matty B, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. How's it going down there in Georgia?
It's incredible. Beautiful sunny skies. The chickens are doing good. House is doing good. I'm doing a lot of work. I got to pour some concrete and build some new walls. I'm always.
What do you guys run at a daily basis, Fahrenheit, or if you can convert it to Celsius for us Canucks up here?
I'm not going to. Absolutely not going to. It's about like 60, 70 degrees on average out here. I don't know. Is it warmer than that? Am I crazy?
No, I mean, we've had a couple days in like the 80s, I think, so far.
Yeah.
We've had some warm. It's strange enough. It was cold this morning. There's a freeze warning tonight, I believe, or tomorrow.
Stop it. Really?
I promise. I'm just so sick of this. But yeah, it's been nice and warm during the day, and then it gets cold at night. It's that time of year here.
God damn.
Yeah, I know. I'm so ready for just heat. I'm a lizard at this point. I want hot heat.
Yeah, well, I come from Colorado. I hate feeling cold in my knees. And I'm now like older. It's an absolutely aggravating situation. Markets are feeling a little cold. As we're talking, Piano Matty B, Bitcoin is pulling down to $77,700. This has been kind of a crazy pullback that we've seen. It's been a while since we had you on the show. I think it was last week. And in between then, we saw the S&P 500 fall all the way down to 4,800 points, scaring the shit out of macroeconomic people. Saw a lot of retail, a lot of people with investments capitulate and run away for the hills. I know you've been warning me begrudgingly about the short-term Bitcoin price. I see the problems in macroeconomics and I'm like, I acknowledge them. I'm just so giga bullish on Bitcoin in the long term. You help me kind of look at that. Piano Matty B, what are you seeing on the Fibonacci side? Like in this overall sentiment? Because we just tapped, I think it was 74,000 for a split second. And that's right at that wick peak of our previous range. Are you feeling more bullish now that we hit that? Or is there more downside ahead of us?
Well, I feel like there's a couple of blocks ahead of us. So like last week when I was on, we were right about here and we're like, well, of course, this could, we can't break this range or else we'll hit 74.6. And this was my target here. And we kind of went down and ting, came back up. And you can see here, as bullish as this looks, it's more or less a relief rally, just like ease the pain a bit. Now we've retested this channel of eternal monotony support and we broke it and it's no big deal. So this is the roadblock that I'm fearing. is, and now correct me if I'm wrong, but April 15th, is that when the greatest psyop in human history starts to play out, and people they pay their direct unapportioned taxes to the government, which is actually illegal? Is that what happened?
Yeah. Yes, you are correct. That's tax days coming right around the corner.
Taxation is theft. By the
Yeah.
way.
Is what it is. I mean, it's like they call it voluntary, but they enforce it with violence. So
Right.
we're in kind of that weird in between zone. What are your thoughts on, does tax day play into kind of people's investment thesis or their excitement about having investments out there?
Yes and no. And if I actually thought that we're sitting here in a retail filled environment, I would kind of be more like expect to see a little more downside. But headwinds are headwinds, and so whatever's left in this market, if it's all institutional, well, maybe we will see a little more kind of tax harvesting on that April 15th. But just to run over like some quick scenarios, this looks slightly bullish, but it's just a relief rally. And if we zoom out to the daily, we can see that basically this is just a long hair don't care wick that we just went down, boom, bang, right? But one of my sayings with the highest probability is that which once wicked will get candlesticked. So I'm a little worried that we may just fill this in, which would make sense because we have been bouncing on this channel of this descension and just kind of finding support and bouncing up, breaking under it, a couple long hair don't care wicks, and this is it. So I wouldn't be surprised to see maybe around April 15th to have that correlation with the downside. And it gets almost a little, we can wrap it up in a nice little weekly sandwich because we are facing, if you can see here, this is a noisy little chart here. You can see this pole here is the bear flag that's playing out here. We're slightly breaking out. And this one, you take the pole, you slide it all to the, come on. Breakout point, and then we're all at about 69K. So it would make sense because what does the market like to do? It likes to go down to like a psychological number, scare everyone, give the pain. Everyone kind of goes, oh, it's 70. And then it breaks 70 and we go to 69. And then, of course, everyone's calling for 60. As soon as we break these big psychological numbers. But, if you want to hear something really kind of bizarre, and we talked about this on my live stream this morning, is that 2021, the price was 69K, right? Let's say it popped out. Here we are 4 years later, and we're at, let's just call it 78K.
Yeah.
Now, the dollar debases, best case scenario, like the sunniest, best case scenario, 16.5%. Right. That's not like factoring all the lies that come in. Oh, let's get rid of gas and put in Rubik's cubes. Let's get rid of food and put in Betamax and VHSs and stuff like that. They fudge all these numbers. So let's just say 16.5 is the best case scenario. Well, our break even point for this bull run is 80,300. That is when our dollar that let's say we all bought in at 69K,
right?
Held, went down, came back up. In order for that investment at 69K to make $1, we got to be 80,300.
And that's the scam of inflation people forget about. It's like, and we lost, like, that true top was 64K from that debasement. The true top in buying power for Bitcoin was 64K. They were able to print enough money between like 6 months to make it so where 69K was no longer the absolute top. So it's so insane. And, there's been a lot of fears. These tariff things getting a little hot and heavy with China, right? China shot back this morning. It's not looking pretty. What is the Canadian view of these tariffs? Are people up in arms? Are they getting ready for battle? Are they going to hold back their maple syrup from me? What is the outlook on this?
Well, you've heard everyone's huffing and puffing up here in Canada. They think they're going to strike back, and Canada's so strong. It's really heartbreaking, because there's a small portion of the population. Like I don't even know many of them because I live in my own bubble. That is just, you have to accept superpowers as superpowers, but yet there's this whole rhetoric. We're almost like those blue-haired nose ring people that you see at all these protests.
Oh my God.
Canada, and so we think that we have a lot of power and we're right and we're on the right side of history, but we're just so clued out that we never really will be. That's why we're lucky to be like a a benign tumor on top of the United States. You know, it's always there. It's not going to really leave. You know, maybe one day it'll become the U.S. Who knows? You know, I wouldn't be too unhappy if that happened, but it's definitely not on my bingo card. But man, can you believe that?
Yeah, this is a time frame I never imagined was going to go down. It's like it's something that I was hopeful for, but I have been warning for months. Like when I first saw Trump had a tangible chance of being reelected, I was like, oh, hell yeah. But if Trump pulls off what he wants to do, which is nationalize production, extreme short-term pain. And it's not just like short-term. We're talking like 4 or 5 years to build back up manufacturing capacity. It plays with the stagflationary pattern of the 70s to 80s. It's kind of a scary statistic, but that inflation return is even more reasoning for me to layer in and put my money into Bitcoin. You know, that's just kind of the conversation in my mind that I've had. The more I see these countries print, the more it's almost like Trump's having to break the leg of the United States economy to then, hey, Treasury, we're broken. We need you to lower interest rates. And it's in responsible macroeconomic movements, not the responsible thing to do, to lower interest rates as we see inflation returning. But the can has been cooked so hard that they have no other choice but then to lower interest rates and inject artificial money, which for anyone that has the long-term vision on Bitcoin can understand that this just compounds our conviction into it. But you know what I mean? The average person, this is why I try to conversate about inflation and the loss of our buying power with the average person so that they can start that path to understanding how to become their own bank and how to, you know, really take control of their finance. So
I have a question for you guys down there because you're a little more in lockstep with the political system there. So a silver lining that I kind of think about is that this short-term pain can really only be until 2026 when midterms are, because he has to run this machine into economically friendly and positive outlook by the time he's now running again. So although it would make sense that this thing is maybe a multi-decade type of operation, you know, like decimate it to the bottom and rebuild from a healthy spot, that's basically what should happen. Do you think that the political system will give the Trump administration that much time to do it, or are they just going to scrap it if it doesn't work come midterms?
Well, he's going to get another term.
I don't think he can. He's already served. This is his second term.
Oh, there's
I declare the king of the United States.
Emperor Trump.
Oh my
has
God.
assumed his post.
That's pretty terrifying. I'm actually,
that's a joke, but there is like some stories and some things come out where like there's some way that he could make it happen somehow.
Who I fear is his son, Barron. That's the God Emperor of America. Whenever Barron
comes,
that's when things are going to get weird on the timeline. And to your question, Matty B, I think that the Trump nationalization of our production, if there are no trade agreements truly met, and it does look like so far, there's been over 70 countries that have reached out to Trump and that are trying to work things out. The main one that we need to see work out an agreement is China. That's not happening so far. China's pretty pissed. This is multifaceted. Like, yes, we have an Arizona, Taiwan semiconductor plant that is producing, and it's actually outpacing Taiwan's specific production in certain months. In general, the Arizona TSMC only costs 10% more to produce wafers than the Taiwan version. So we have a foothold on the main sticking point, which is semiconductor production for our computer systems to keep being produced and to, you know, make sure that we have a military might that can back that up. But coming from a manufacturing background, I just know that even though we've seen an uptick in manufacturing, it would be about 4 or 5 years of pain at the grocery store because you have to wean yourself off of that globalist trade standard, basically. And this is where some of the more the only graph that worries me is the 70s to 80s stagflationary comparison, which we are unfortunately following to this degree. Isaac, I don't know if you can punch this in while we got Matty B, but there it is. This is the graph. The only real like concerning graph to me is seeing us following the stagflationary pattern. And in these moments where CPI comes roaring back, like we saw in the early 80s, late 70s, this is where the Mexican standoff happens at the car dealership, where the buyer doesn't have the capital to purchase the vehicle. The producers want too much for the vehicle, and it doesn't sound reasonable to the buyer. So basically, the products just sit on the sidelines, stagnant. We have seen, over the next year, I think this plays into perfectly what the FOMC is talking about with this June rate cut and a couple rate cuts over the remainder of this year. And statistically, if they did do that, that would mean this line continues and flatlines just as it did historically. But then, as I said at the beginning of the show, if you were reasonable about macroeconomics, you'd be raising rates to stop this. They're going to lower rates to keep the economy kicking over. And if those trade agreements don't work out in a positive manner with China particularly, then that big upswing happens. And that's where the 10 to 15% mortgages happen. That's the death of the middle class right there. So
people just absolutely decimate.
Yes. And in the big difference that is kind of on the underscope, and it's insane to me to argue with macroeconomic people and be right when they have like degrees. And they don't take into account that the average income in the 70s to 80s was like, I think it was like 20 to 30 grand. Now it's like 50, maybe 55 here in the United States. But the average cost of a home back then was $50K. Now it's $450,000. So, this is where I've always emphasized the importance of buying a home. And this is why I've been covering companies like Printier Partners and Blackstone, who's been founded by Larry Fink, that are leaning into Section 8 housing because they know pain is coming for the average person. And I can scream from the top of a rooftop, please, for the love of God, hold on to your value yourself. It's such a compounding problem. And Laserface is making me whip out the chart. Should I whip out the chart? Am I doing it?
Yeah,
All right.
take the chart.
All right. We're going to the FDIC unrealized losses. Quarter 4. Okay. Because we got a new print.
People use this chart. They compare this chart with Trump's immigration chart that you had out.
This is my immigration chart. Absolutely. There is no law. And so if you want to see this for yourself, go to the FDIC website. This is directly on the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation's website. Now I'll share this tab instead because I remember things. We go down to here. This is the unrealized gains and losses that these banks are sitting on right now. And they were hoping that this lower print on the losses was going to continue and start to come back to equilibrium. That is not the case. We have continued this debt spiral. And this is where I think a lot of the reasoning for Trump to break the economy comes into play, because he's trying to refinance $7 trillion worth of debt. If you have to refinance that $7 trillion worth of debt at the current interest rates, that breaks the system anyways. This is where this short-term shelf of the Fed acting a little bit dovish and everything's okay, we're going to keep the economy moving forward, comes into play. And then shit just goes absolutely haywire 27, 28. That's what I don't want to have happen. I want us to break away from that historical chart, but it's something I can't help but acknowledge. So
you think if we continue to see that go down or continue to get worse, like that causes things like housing bubbles?
Yeah, I mean, you'll see credit controls where it'll basically be impossible for the average person to get a loan for a home. You see capital controls. And if that line in that system does keep breaking, the real nasty version of what comes if this, exceeds the $1 trillion mark is bank bail-ins, where they will go into my bank account, your bank account, not Piano Matty B because he's in a different country, Isaac's bank account, and they will take whatever little money that they have, that we have in comparison to what the banks have, use that money to fix the system that they've continually printed into breaking. So what you got, Isaac?
Something tells me Bitcoin solves this.
No, Biz Knowledge over here says breaking news: 104% tariff goes into effect on China 12 p.m. Eastern time.
Holy shit.
I put it in your bookmarks on X, but it is from Kobayashi letter. So that's what's going on right now.
Oh my God. All right. This is the war, man. This is an absolute war. It's a trade war. All right, let's look at this.
Oh,
The White House.
wild.
Dude.
104%.
additional 104% additional tariffs on China went into effect 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time today because China has not removed their 34% tariff. Oh boy. You know what? In times like this, it's fine that I'm invested in, like, I love Bitcoin. But also, this is an important time to figure out if you're warlord material or not. And if you're a girl, are you dating a man who is warlord material? I'm going to ask yourself that. So, Maddie B, absolutely fantastic analysis on what to keep in mind for that bear flag, where it could reach down to. Very, very
69K,
important.
unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah. Are there any other key indicators that you're watching outside of this tariff war, which just escalated
in front of our
extremely
faces?
bad,
Yeah, no.
alive on air? Anything else that is kind of making you a little bit worried or maybe bullish?
Well, it's all kind of making me a little bit worried, but like this is why you were saying that you had some open trades. Like this is like going surfing in a tsunami. Like if you have some dry powder, I would just maybe let the waves calm a little more. I know the 60 gens out there look at this and they start chomping at the bit.
Oh, yeah.
But like there's that old saying, when it comes to the States and in China, it's like if you lend me a little bit of money, you kind of own me. But if you lend me too much money, I start owning you. And I think the leverage that the States has is that we're just their biggest customer. So if they don't play nice with the States, look, I'm already including Canada as we, right?
Hell yeah.
So a little Freudian slip there. That's the way it's going to play out. And they got a posture. I mean, we're talking about global economics here, and they got a posture like a tough thing, but they're going to realize it. But there's going to be some pain in between there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's a wild time. We're riding the charts together. And you know what? My trades, they totally got stopped out. I lost 12% on each trade. So it is what it is. I've lived to trade another day. I am eyeing this, wanting to get back in. I don't know.
At least you got a stop loss in, though.
I did. I used a stop. I don't want to just get demolished of things. I mean, I'm basically at the mercy of these headlines, right? Like you have your TA and all those things, but the headlines,
that's right.
Right on the short-term time frame. So
Crushing.
Absolutely crazy. Piano Matty B, last Friday, I had something. I can't even remember what happened to me last Friday. What happened last Friday?
I couldn't tell you.
It was my kids or someone got sick on me.
I couldn't tell you. I don't remember.
But I do plan on logging in on this Friday.
This is what I'll do this Friday, because I know it's hard for you to get there at 8. I'll keep the window open, and because usually I shut it off because I always think my computer's going to have a conniption fit if too many things happen. But I'll keep that window on. So if you want to join me on Friday to reconvene, see where we're at price-wise, I'll keep the window open so we can chat more.
I absolutely want to, man. Absolutely want to. I appreciate you coming on the show, Matty.
Thanks for having me.
Much, all right. See you, brother.
See you, J Chains.
See you, brother. It's good to hear you again.
You too.
Hell yeah. See you, Matty. That guy is so damn cool. What's up, Brianna? Welcome in. Come on in here. Have a seat.
Let me ask you a question about, you had said we're kind of at the mercy of the headline, right? If you would think like, and this is what I've been saying on my show recently, is if you look at crypto, if you look at the market, we're kind of living this bullish divergence, right? Where we see price going down, but the stories, the headlines, the news, the narrative, it has never been better.
Right. That is, it's kind of a conundrum. We were talking about like how can these massive organizations be buying this much Bitcoin and the price still getting crushed?
Right.
It was explained to me by a guy who ran the derivatives desks of Wall Street since like the 80s. And he's explained it very clearly. They use algorithms to buy the Bitcoin during this chop zone. And so that's how they're able to kind of sneak the buys in without these giga green candles everyone expects from the bullish narratives, which are happening. But you know what? They can't hide and they can't use the algorithms if the market is already cooking up into the right anyways. Then the purchases gets much more noticeable. And the bullish headlines compared with the bearish price, I think, is one of the most powerful psyops that investors have ever experienced in the history of finance. Like we are now getting that regulatory clarity, that adoption. The states are going to beat the Federal Reserve to starting these strategic reserves for the states, particularly. And these states are talking about up to 10% allocation. And some of these states are, like Texas is the seventh, massive, right?
That was one thing that I loved hearing about, because when I lived there, they got the slush fund, the rainy day fund, they call it, right? And it is worth like billions of dollars.
Absolutely.
So 10% of that is like,
it's a shitload.
You're going to put $100 million into Bitcoin? Like,
right.
That should move a chart.
So
but it's not going to.
Having those bullish narratives going on in the background of this pullback, it's been much more comfortable than, let's look at the larger time frames here. I'll pull up that's S&P 500. Let's go to the 1 month on Bitcoin. So this pullback of the last market, where we had the, I think it was about, let's say, that was a big one, 60%, 57%. At this initial pullback, I was like, fuck, Operation Choke Point 2.0 might actually be happening. They might try to kill us, right? On this pullback that we just had, even though structurally it's the same, emotionally it's much different, because I know that they're not trying to kill Bitcoin. They're adopting it. They just want us off of the chain.
Shake it out. You got to shake out the weak. You got to get rid of. And listen, there's no reason to think like, look, if you consider exactly what happened in crypto, say over the last several months, where we went on this like really extended long meme coin season, where these things got really kind of down and dirty and grungy to some extent, right? Like, you think like we go through bear markets, and the narrative has always been like, we need this to clean the space up. Well, I think right before like actual showtime, that it was maybe a really good thing. And maybe if we see, I mean, you see some of these charts and some of these analysts are talking for like 60, 40s, whatever it is, right? Like, you see some of this stuff happen. It is going to shake out a lot of the bad stuff that happens.
Absolutely. Well, and Pump.Fun just went live with the live streams again. So,
okay, all right.
So they're not giving up.
Hopefully, they have some filters on that stuff now.
I don't think so.
Oh,
I don't think. I think they just got tired of missing the revenue there. So there's that. No, let's run through all this. I mean, we got a lot of stories outside of that China thing was nuts. So Doge this morning was at $291 billion in government savings. We go over to the debt clock itself. Thank you for a gift to the membership as well, Crypto Cody. Appreciate you. It's up by 3 billion, just about in the span of 2 hours. So this clock is moving up pretty fast. I swear to God, that Adrian Dittman guy, I was on a space with him last night. That is
AKA Elon Musk.
Dude, sure. That is Elon Musk.
Come on,
right?
You can't convince me that it's not. It sounds way too much like him. There's no 100%. One, unless it's an AI controlled account that is his voice. That's the only way that it's not him.
There's I've argued and had many AI agents on spaces. I know what AI agents sound like.
They're
even
usually
if they're good.
terrible.
I know they're usually terrible, but I've heard some pretty good ones. I got close. Adrian Dittman is not an AI character.
That's a real person.
No, and it's either.
But Elon would be able to afford a really, really good one.
God, maybe you're right. But this one Adrian whispers and is like a complete prick to people he doesn't like.
Elon would be the only one with a tech like that.
Yeah. Maybe. I don't know about that. You think so?
Well, I do.
It's crossed my mind.
But I do. Listen, I subscribe to the same theory. Ultimately, that is him. That's his alt account. We all have alt accounts. That's got to be his. And he will defend that it's not him. I heard him defend that it's not him. But you have to defend that it's not you to defend that it's not your alt account.
Yeah. I just think it's his alt account. I've been arguing with all AI agents on spaces before. It feels like it's his alt. Now, and a lot of people are pulling out of the market, and they're calling the 109 inauguration day the top for Bitcoin. I do want to look at this, the Bitcoin Fear and Greed Index overlaid with the colorations of our current fear situation. I think we're at like a 17 for fear right now. We're in extreme fear zones. And the inauguration day was about a 70. And calling this the gigatop, I mean, I see the concerns, but we did not have that mass exuberation. Like, it wasn't people looking to buy islands. It wasn't NFTs or memes, giga sending. I mean,
Lambos. There was no Lambos, man.
There's no Lambos.
No Lambos.
Right. When Lambo? Where Lambo?
When Moon? When Lambo?
Exactly.
Come on.
So bull markets don't end in fear zones.
Did you even hear the song "Pump It Up" like one time?
No, well, I mean, I forced it,
Me too, at least once.
Yeah, I forced it, and because I got some altcoins that are doing pretty good. But we did not have that zone. And I do want to talk about altcoins. We got all the crazy China fear and a little bit of dissenting from Elon, saying that the White House senior trade advisor Pete Navarro is truly a moron and dumber than a sack of bricks. So I think and Elon was trying to call for a fair trade between Europe and the United States. I don't think that is something accomplishable. I think Elon's like, oh shit, I produce all these goods. I rely on all these raw materials. Things, might be a little rough in the short term with this Trump buckling the belt down. So it is what it is. Now, oh God. I thought this was big news before we went live. China said it's not going to bow to President Trump's new tariff threats. I wonder what they're going to do next. They're going to invade Taiwan. Isaac, you ready to go to Taiwan?
I'm ready.
All right.
I'll be a Marine in like 3 weeks from now.
All right, good. Absolutely crazy. Now, and just an example of how at exposure we are to bad headlines. U.S. stocks swung by $7 trillion in 30 minutes yesterday on a fake tariff deal headline. Okay. So there's good upside for psychos, but I am using a stop loss when I'm trading. My stop loss got hit, and I'm kind of feeling like re-entering right now. I don't know. I got to host the show and handle all this stuff first. There's a lot of stuff to look at.
See, I don't have a stop loss in. I'm on the show, but I like to let the market breathe. We were talking about this a little bit before, right?
Yeah.
You've done your work, and obviously, you're at the control of the narrative, and sometimes things take a dip or whatever. But you've done your work. You know where things are going based on the overall outlook.
Yeah.
Short term, you got to let it breathe.
I traded pretty high leverage though. So
okay,
yeah, I'm on a 30x.
Okay, stuff, I get that. I got you. I'm trying to do a long term. I'm on a 10x. That's low for me.
That's more reasonable.
That's low for me. Extremely low. And I feel like
it is what it is. You gotta, I understand.
Trying something new.
I
Sometimes
understand.
you gotta try something new.
Just in terms of activist judges and Elon Musk battle, we have an activist judge attempting to block lawful deportations. President Trump has the right to defend American families, communities, and businesses against criminal aliens. He came out with a comment that the Supreme Court has upheld the rule of law in our nation by allowing the president, whoever that might be, to be able to secure our border and protect our families of our country. Itself a great day for justice in America. Nice to see a loss for those captured judges who are trying to stop Trump from doing what he needs to do. But nothing stops Ethereum's pain. Let's look at this. Imagine being this guy. He got liquidated for $100 million yesterday.
That big one.
He held this position for 6 years. 6 years he held this position for. Got liquidated yesterday. $100 million. 12 hours later, the market started pumping back up. Now it's back down. But just imagine, I have a few $1,000 in each trade or whatever. And, I've lost a couple hundred on the stop loss. $100 million.
That makes any loss that I've ever had
minuscule.
But do we know who that person is?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Still, $100 million is $100 million. That sucks.
Yeah, and that's a giga whale. Probably has a lot more money than that. You know what I mean?
Imagine if that was just like a small percent portfolio.
Jeez, I had a golden toilets and ridiculous things in my front yard. Canary officially has filed for a SWI ETF, the CVOE. Interesting movements. We see more excitement coming to the SWI ecosystem. Is SWI at about $2 right now? Where's SWI?
I think it was like maybe 209 or something earlier when I'd seen that.
I imagine I saw you posted that it looked kind of like a good deal at $1.90.
$1.92. Yeah, definitely a great value of dollars because where this thing's going. Not only are they a fast, cheap blockchain, but they got the Sweet Play 1 coming out at some point this year, so they'll get into the gaming ecosystem whenever that may be.
Yeah, that OG health on a shelf is like 1.7, so $1.70. So, I mean, if it lost that level, it would be extremely painful. But generally, the market pullback, the S&P didn't die. This is the S&P 500. It is sitting here at 5113. And the S&P is kind of funny. It just pulled back to these initial stumble points right here in this previous peak of 2021. Very interesting to see. It was about 4,800 on the S&P. It does look like the markets are not ready to go into a Great Depression. Hopefully, that'd be great if we didn't. But you know what? Either way, I'm just going for the biscuit.
Do you think that the So we call it, the analysts here in crypto. We always say that same kind of thing. We need the shakeout. Like, it's the corrections. They're healthy for the market. All that stuff. Are people in the stonk world that are following the S&P 500 saying, guys, don't worry about this. It's okay. It's a market. They're cyclical. They'll go back up. Don't worry.
I mean, this like Patrick Bet David. Yeah. Like, some of the bigger, longer term.
So he posted that video where he was like on by the water, right?
Yes.
I did watch that. He did very well at easing the concerns of maybe any of his, investors, followers, whatever.
Well, it's statistical too. I mean, I wish you would have overlaid the graph with it. Here's the graph. I mean, yes, this is a pullback. This is like a 20, maybe 30%.
Yeah.
So, and this is from, I think, the beginning of the year, 21%, but it's had many pullbacks just like this in its history. And then, we talked about like Black Monday for Bitcoin at the beginning of this week. But then we look at what Black Monday looks like. Look, I have to zoom. Look how much I have to zoom in.
It's so crazy.
Look at how much I have to zoom into this. And this is like the end. And granted, this is over like a day or two. So it's a very fast, heavy velocity pullback. 35% in the course of a very short amount of time. So it was very scary. Maybe let's look at the daily, because the thing about Black Monday that makes it so scary for everyone, where did it go? Did it disappear on me? There it goes. All right. The thing that makes it so scary for everyone is the velocity of Black Monday. God, it's going to take me forever.
It's going to take a while to get over there.
I can't do it. It was a span of like 2 or 3 days. It lost a ton of that.
30%.
Yeah. And it was like the new design of derivatives and these over leveraged market players, which we all find aggravation for. And that's why I get into Bitcoin anyways. But yes, Black Monday comparatively very different from this resurgence. And I think we're going to be just fine. I think Patrick Bet David, people listen to him on the traditional finance world, and that voice of calm reason, I think, is very necessary for those big pullbacks. It can't be up and to the right forever anyway. It cannot.
No, I think that's the narrative, right? And that was that same tone and effect of what I was just saying. It was like, it's healthy. That kind of stuff is healthy. If you look at that S&P 500 chart, like for 3 years straight, it was up and to the right.
Absolutely.
Like at a crazy angle.
Absolutely. And that it gets concerning to me when I do see stuff like that, because at a point, it's going to take a breather. And we just did see this breather. God, that is crazy when you're looking at this really backed up, like right to the T of that 2021 October peak is where we fell down to on Monday. So wouldn't be surprised if we bounce off that level, but it might be choppy for a month or two. And this is where it makes even more sense, kind of this extended cycle kind of conversation TJ and me have been talking about. Even my wife was like, you need to start looking at the middle of 2026 even, because the pullback level that we have had in Bitcoin is different. The time frame is the same, but the height at which we pull back is different. And now we have like millions of altcoins or meme coins.
Yeah, I feel like at some point you have to think that the 4-year cycle is done. Like, just pack it up. And Bitcoin, pay homage to the king. The king will always be the king. The Bitcoin will probably always have its 4-year cycle, but crypto is bigger than Bitcoin. It is going to continue to get larger. The RWA ecosystem will completely outpace and outgrow what Bitcoin itself is, right?
Yeah.
And so it can't have to bow down to what Bitcoin does because of miners or whatever, right? Because of the algorithm. It's got to be able to do its own thing. So I think what we are doing is at least maybe seeing the separation from the 4-year cycle of Bitcoin and altcoins. Meme coins, think about that. Like what it did, every cycle previous. What do we have? 2 to 10 meme coins. Previous.
Right.
Now we got hundreds of thousands of these.
There's millions of them.
Millions of them.
Millions. And what you're saying, like RWAs in the long run won't have to back down to Bitcoin, I think is true. But I think, what we were talking about before the show, like how they moved the goalpost, they said like $16 trillion in the RWA sector by 2030.
Right.
Now that outlook is like 2033.
2033, right.
But they're still planning to do it. Right. That's very bullish.
But even in that, you got to think about that kind of growth, right? This is an emerging market. So why does it have to pay attention to what Bitcoin's doing when the pace and the time to grow now? So you go to, and let's say it's, 16 to 30 was a conservative number by the Boston Consulting Group. So I think it might be more like a $50 trillion number. So let's just say $30 trillion by 2030. Where in the world and when do the world do? Because right now it's 2025. That's 5 years from now. When are we going to have time to take or like a little pause? But game off, car. Bitcoin's got to just go into a bear market. Like we can't do that. There's really not time for it.
Yeah, I mean, a bigger part of like my idea of a break in the cycle and like, because if it is a 4-year cycle, then we see Bitcoin fall by like 60 or 70%. But
you look at that 6 month, you look at that Bitcoin 6 month chart.
Right.
Last it was a 75% drop, a 65% drop, and if we go on that diminishing to a 55, that puts it at like 42K. I hate saying this.
That would absolutely, like, statistically what you're talking about, and the amount of candles in between each pullback, very interesting to look at. But also the variable of having states and then the Fed do the strategic reserve, and then the big horse in the room or elephant in the room is Bitcoin bonds, treasury bonds. That's an easy win for the government to do.
I understand, like, looking at this chart and you see the historical and like, okay, history doesn't repeat, it rhymes. But we are, and this is where I think, we got to look forward to is what's the narrative, where things are going. Again, I had said earlier in the show, like, the news has never been better. You look at every single day, this country's trying to buy Bitcoin. The SEC dropped this case. The FDIC now says that banks in the U.S. can use crypto. Bank of America using 100% of the internal transactions with XRP. Like, the narrative has never been better.
Right. And then that's another story we got to cover here. Look at the DOJ shut down the crypto task force under Trump's lead. The US, I mean, they're just dismantling all these anti-crypto systems. The U.S. Trump lead pivoting from a crackdown of crypto to a crypto-friendly, and now promising a new era of digital finance. Like, the guardrails and the things that were previously in our way are going away. Isaac, you looked up when Paul Atkins was slated roughly to get put in place as the SEC chair, right?
Paul Atkins so they held off a little bit. It was supposed to be at the beginning of this month, but so it's now the time frame is looking between middle of April and early May, of like the first 2 weeks of May.
Again, it's probably going to be the latter. It's going to be May. I'd agree. Yeah. Paul Atkins is kind of on the inside build out of the Biddle program.
Oh, really?
In congruence with Ondo.
Right. And BlackRock. And all
you know what I mean? So it's like, it's this party that's about to take over the SEC. Let's see. I want to see if we can go to their story. This is Securitize website. I'll share this. Go down to the leadership team right here, but then the advisors. Very interesting board of directors. But the advisors is really what I like looking at here. It looks like Paul Atkins have been taken off.
Oh, interesting.
They took him off because he's no longer going to be advising. He's going to be leading the SEC. But the other dudes involved with this, James Wallace, the VP of Central Bank Engagements with Ripple, right? And then just a small company, IBM, that he was the vice president of blockchain at.
No big deal.
So these dudes being in control.
Oh, there you go. This Manolo guy, he was with BBVA Compass. That's another chairman.
Absolutely. I mean, and then this guy, Brett Redfern, got to watch out for him. He was the SEC's former director in division of trading and markets.
Hey,
so it's like all of these people on the inside that are advising Securitize. The outlook for RWAs is very, very strong. There's applications of stable coins, which we see more of that regulatory focus on currently. A big part of that, in my opinion, comes from putting treasuries into stable coin form. It allows the government to sell treasuries. If China wants to dump all our treasuries, we need to have new offloading mechanisms. So if we leverage crypto to do that, then you can sell it to anyone, very minimal fees across the world on crypto over the course of the next 10, 15 years.
And I think that, like, with Ondo Global Markets and some of the things that they're introducing, that's kind of like the intention of a lot of that.
Well, and I've had to call a ceasefire between XRP and Chainlink. I did, because we saw the XRP, or is like the stable coin for XRP,
the RLUSD.
RLUSD. It set up rails to communicate with both Ondo and Chainlink. And then I see XRP again with a massive announcement, like they're setting up the rails for these banks, and it's like this small group. But I also see, not only price wise, like HBAR was looking pretty good, but also Plume looking very good. Have you seen Plume? Yeah,
I have. Yeah.
That's a good project.
Yeah.
Right. Are you in and on it a little bit? Or?
I got a little bag. I want, I kind of didn't catch the pump, so I'm waiting for this thing to come down to a different.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I mean, Plume integrating with Ondo, first fully integrated L1 on RWAs. This is like, Plume is going to be the Robin Hood of crypto communicating with Wall Street, and Ondo is Wall Street.
Right.
And so having investments, and it is a smaller portion that I have. It's like probably 5% of my portfolio is in Plume.
Okay.
Ondo is like 20 or 30%.
Yeah.
It's a big chunk.
Big percentage.
And part of that comes from like finding it at like 38 cents, but then I've added at $1. So those recent buys are underwater. Everyone laughs at me because they think I'm losing so hard.
I tell people just wait 6 to 8 months. We're going to be laughing about the prices
100%.
that we're looking at right now.
100%.
So anything under $1 for Ondo is a steal of a deal.
Yeah. And the integrations, I like seeing them. The only aggravation I can statistically have about XRP is the market cap is already so high, right? God, is ETH sub $1,500 right now?
My goodness, are we dropping? Is everything just dropping?
So
XRP, you hear some people tell the story about XRP's got the multiplier. Market cap doesn't matter. XRP, it's got this multiplier effect that what it's doing, who they've targeted, where they've done business. There was like something that Brad Garlinghouse had said in the last 6 weeks of 2024, he inked more partnerships in the United States than he did in the last 6 months, right? There was all sorts of things that was happening because they knew the writing was on the wall, and that was here in the United States. Internationally, I think they were playing both sides. So you think about IMF and BRICS and all that. Right. I think no matter where, going to the future, no matter where you try to settle a transaction in the world, Ripple or XRP is going to have some effect in it, right?
I mean, to a degree, it's just about how much pressure from the token can be applied from those transactions, because the transaction fee is designed to be basically non-existent by design.
Right, but then you go back to the RLUSD, and I think it's got the burn mechanism with the XRP in there. So like making it deflationary. So if they can't, I think the focus should be on the stable coin to make XRP the deflationary token, which we know what that means.
So if we do see RLUSD implemented at those scales, then theoretically we would see RLUSD burning the XRP with the transaction fees,
which I believe is like an unintended consequence. But like when people realize like at scale, like this is actually a really good thing, because the tokenomics of XRP, I believe, is one of its biggest like thing that turns people off.
Yeah. These are things we got to think about. I mean, I remember when Ethereum moved to proof of stake, I was pissed. I was fucking pissed. And now, after that happened, we saw, God, look at that. Let's take it in for a second. $1,480.
Hey, it might be time to pick up some ETH.
God damn. Yeah, and the foundation, the ETH Foundation, with all this infighting, Flux of the North is highlighting. I didn't even remember to cover that. They have like this so Vitalik was like, I am the king. I am the foundation leader. And then they just announced a new leader. It's like a underage Asian chick. So I don't know what the hell's going on with that. But the ETH Foundation has had a lot of internal infighting, and Ethereum as a technology, me and BJ were warning like years ago at this point. Coinbase is going to capture Ethereum somehow. What do we see? It's our Base, right? Base is using the carcass of Ethereum.
Much cheaper.
Well,
every transaction is like a penny, right?
This is the problem, is that people don't understand that technology changes, and that, what we used to heat our house with was whale oil. Then kerosene came across, easier to pull out, much cheaper. So we switched to kerosene, and now we have natural gas and all these other things. Things change. It's just with the .com burst, the bubble. No one uses AOL and the CDs that were the dominant factor when we were first seeing the internet. Now that we've seen the next version of the internet, which is Web 3, and this Web 2.5 start to be rolled out, you have to find systems that communicate with the existing system and then translate over to what we want to see in Web 3. It's just the building process. I'm from a building mindset. It is what it is. DCA and Prey heats his house with wood. That's got to be a lot of work.
Better than whale oil.
Yeah. Imagine you need to go kill a whale to heat your home.
Honey, I'm taking the boat out. I got to go get us some more oil.
Holy Jesus. That's an existence.
Thank goodness for technology and advance. I know it's our friend and our enemy, but my gosh, at this,
it can be our friend if we leverage it the right way. That's the point of it. And this whole trade tariff battle. Why don't we go mine Alaska and get the silicon from there? I've mentioned it many times. We sit on Alaska, this massive breadbasket of natural resources. I get it. We don't have manufacturing or refining systems there yet. That can change. Absolutely. Whale oil was big business. Pirate Justin with the ultimate PFP there. Absolutely love it. Now, Chainlink, we will take a look at this. The Link and Ondo ticking time bomb. After seeing the Ondo summit back in January this year, we wouldn't be surprised to see some sort of major partnership with Chainlink being the Oracle data and CCIP and Ondo the tokenization infrastructure. But one wild card within this in terms of being the chosen Oracle for the BUIDL program is Redstone. Let's go. Yes, this is a very new Oracle that Securitize highlighted as being potentially used as the overall Oracle for this system.
Okay.
I don't own any of this, but seeing that partnership, seeing the pain in the markets, I got my ears perked.
Really interesting. It's one of those things where you look at Pith, right? You look at that because that was supposed to be the Chainlink killer with the Oracle solution coming up on Solana. But I feel like at the end of the day, you really need Chainlink. What I've been saying is you need success to breed competition, right?
Yeah.
And so you need Chainlink because it is the OG in that Oracle space. You need Chainlink to do what it needs to do in order for any of the other competitors to really get their name.
That's the thing that's so hard to imagine a world moving beyond Chainlink because it is such a logical translator of information from the existing internet to the Web 3.0, the tokenization of car notes and stuff like that.
Right.
So seeing something that's already built in a manner to communicate with the existing system, not trying to take over the world immediately, you all come to me or not. If it's or not, they're probably not going to go there. You have to have that middle ground to communicate. So seeing that news, this is why I've had to call the ceasefire between XRP and Chainlink. Okay, I understand XRP is this immovable object.
It's good. I mean, I feel like having the ceasefire between the Link Marines and the XRP army is a really good thing. We need to have our special forces come together.
Absolutely. And any project with a gang or an army behind them, man, that's more fun.
Let me ask you a question. So I put this out there. Obviously, I love Ondo, big in the Ondo community. I put out a thing trying to find a community name because the Ondo people early on have given the name as the Ondovians. And that to me, to that same thing, right? Like you walk into a dark alley and you meet up with the Link Marines or the XRP army or the H Barbarians or something. They're like, who are you? We're like, we're the Ondovians. They'll be like, hey, you're getting beat up.
Oh yeah, what was the name that you came up for Ondo? Was it Ondovians? Please don't.
No, the Outlaws.
Ondo Outlaws. What's up, Bronson? Yeah, I'll put you in there here, buddy. There's my boy right there. I'm glad you're not running around hurting yourself. I got the boy here. There you go, bud.
Yeah, so the Ondo Outlaws, there was a couple. I was gonna do a whole March Madness kind of tournament bracket.
Yeah, Ondo Outlaws.
I think that it kind of just
Ondalorians though. I don't think because we got a Star Wars themed thumbnail today.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, it's kind of Star Wars-ish.
I have Ellie. Yeah, see, she did comment in the chat when we were doing that on my show, Ondalorians. Yeah. I get it, but still, the Ondalorians are not going to scare or you're not going to be able to compete with the XRP army or the Link Marines.
I mean, I'd like having the
Ada gang. Remember, it's
Ada gang.
It cannot be
down.
the card. It can no.
We're not going to happen.
No, it's not allowed. They cannot be the Cardano community. They have to be the Ada gang.
Ada gang is so much cooler,
So much cooler. I don't get it. Cooler. Why would you reject that? But they are scientists and nerds and engineers, so it does make a lot of sense.
No, we're the community.
Yeah. And some of the best, one of the best researchers I've ever came across in my life, Hobus. I've been talking to him in the background about Aptos, okay, and the computational capabilities of Aptos. Aptos is a stem. Basically, you had the team from Facebook's Libra stem to Sui, and then Aptos. Aptos is honestly pretty beat down in terms of price compared to Sui.
Okay.
But Aptos did officially just integrate with Chainlink data feeds as well in the CCIP. Foundation joined the Link Scale program. This on top of their slight plugins so far to the RWA sector, because I do see their TVL on the RWA XRZ, this website here. Every now and again, I see Aptos come swinging from the fences, and they got massive amounts of TVL being tested. Transactional throughput on it, very, very strong. Very much understated. It's not already, doing well. The TVL on Ondo is what scares me from deviating. Let's go to TVL. Quick, just view a Solana TVL on DeFi Llama. Where'd it go? Not too far down, even though the price is absolutely beat down. So just a good note on Solana's TVL right now. Let's do the overlayment of the price on this. Where is this? Doesn't that give? Oh yeah, here it
does.
Yeah, this is like the first arbitrage moment we've seen in quite some time on Solana's TVL compared to price. So that is something worthy to note. But let's check out Ondo, because the TVL on Ondo is just shown to be rock solid during the market pullback.
Dropped below a billy.
I mean, it dropped, but barely. That's
barely.
Like, yeah, that's nothing.
But look at that shelf it hit. Man.
I know. That's a healthy shelf. That's health on a shelf. The Ondo price, huge discrepancy.
Oh my god.
In the price to TVL overlayment.
Well, we were all so happy, especially if you got that high percentage portfolio of Ondo, baby. We were all happy in December.
Hell yeah. I mean, I'm doing fine. And you know what? I didn't add during those times, and I was aggravated because the price was up and I didn't feel comfortable buying more.
But as it turns out, maybe that was a good decision because look, now's the time to really a much better time to buy.
There it is. So being stubborn and patient helps in crypto. I mean,
that's why Warren Buffett is absolutely, you love him or hate him, he's the best trader of all time.
Yes,
because he said it right. It's the transformation of the patient.
Absolutely, and you have to exercise that patience to then, because when these time frames come and the massive pullbacks come, you can get shitloads of crypto for cheap, compared to like DCA and $100 every week, just and you get a couple coins. Now at this time, you hammer $1,000 in Ondo, you're getting a lot. I think you get like 1,400 at this current price of 1,300.
That's for sure.
So that's a lot. That's a big difference there. Another one. I don't know if you've been looking at this, JChains, but since you're here, Morpho. Have you seen Morpho?
I have. Yeah, that was one. I really like it, and it's on vote for Binance. There's a bunch of tokens that you can vote on Binance to add. Ondo's one of them. So if you have a Binance account, you should go on and do your voting. Vote for Ondo, but you can vote for 5.
There's a lot of votes for Ondo names. Ondo Enforcers, Ondo Orphans, Ondo Brigade, Ondo Fink's fucking Army. Jesus.
Ondo 1 Kenobis.
Ondo 1 Kenobis, Ondongs, Ondo Lords,
job,
Ondo
Corey.
Cartel.
Shout out to Corey.
Plume needs a gang name.
Oh God.
Doesn't it?
The Plumers.
The Plumers. Ooh, with the ass crack.
Dude, that would be the name of the show. Like, that would be your podcast. If you were a Plume guy, you'd be like, welcome to the Plumers crack.
I like it. Well, you know what? Morpho, I think, is another sneaky one. We're getting a good discrepancy in TVL to token price. A lot of selling off. Dollar Morpho, very tasty for me. But in general, you know what? I'm not worried. I'm buying products of true value. Plume Pooners.
I like that one better.
That is incredible, Dad. Thank you very much for that, Pops. I love and appreciate all you. JChains, wonderful having you on the show.
Yeah, man, this fun. Thank you.
I like that you've been looking at Ondo over the past few months. You even have like the price chart thing.
Oh yeah, no, I've been in Ondo since like early 2024.
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah, so I've been trying to keep steer my people in the right direction. I know my mom's a big investor in Ondo because she understands where it's going. You pick the right players, right? Ondo is the partnerships that they've inked, the direction that they're going, the position that they're putting themselves with as we start to see the global financial ecosystem change. Like, it's really interesting. We've been going to these Bitcoin conferences for years, right? Is that we watched it shift from a movement to an industry, and now we are part of the global financial ecosystem.
It's insane.
It is insane.
That's why this pullback's not so scary to me anymore.
It is just an opportunity. If you're new to crypto, don't be scared.
Yeah.
If you've been here, act like it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we got to get veteran going with that DeFi side too. We gotta add. Me and TJ got ideas here. I love and appreciate all you. Lock in. You know what? We might get a big pullback if we do. I'm feeling like, I'm going to check out the liquidation levels, see where I might plug in this next long, but I do have to host another show right after this. So look at this liquidation map. There is nothing. It has murdered everyone. Murder. All right. Thank you very much for joining us, you guys. Make sure to subscribe. JChains, what's your channel called?
Just JChains.
Just JChains.
Yeah, you just on YouTube, it's just at JChains. On X, you can find me though, JChains X.
Nice. Okay. Well, it was excellent. It was an excellent show. We got a lot of information out. We talked to the Canucks, figured out the sentiment up north. It's a good time for everyone. Ellie, Joe Bro, Flex of the North, Mr. Mark got banned, but he's back. Joseph Coupador, Ondo Nuts. That's a good name. Cali Crypto Dude. Vet, of course, Efficient Enough, Morgan Powell, Fluffy the Sheep, XRP, Crypto Cody, Granny's Garden, Simply Dana, all the people. I love and appreciate every single one of you. I'm going to send out the Krav guy his Arculus cold storage device. He got me his address, so we're going to get you that, and we're going to do another giveaway just like that here in the near future. Appreciate you guys. Stay based, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.